I'm John Vreeland. On the other end of the camera is Patricia Sanders, and today we are looking at the poet and writer Charles Bukowski. Charles Bukowski is one of America's best-known contemporary writers of poetry and prose, and many would claim, including myself, the most influential and imitated poet. He was born in Germany in 1920 to an American soldier and a German mother, and he moved to Los Angeles when he was 3 and lived there for 50 years. His first published story was in 1944. He was 24 years old. It was a short story, and he didn't begin writing poetry until he was 35. And during his lifetime, he published more than 45 books of poetry and prose, including his first novel, Post Office, in 1971. But the majority of his books were books of his unique form of free verse poetry. And such books as Burning in Water, Drowning in a Flame, Betting on the Muse, Slouching Towards Nirvana, to name a few. All these books back here. Bukowski died March 9th, 1994 in San Pedro at the age of 73. Okay, the first poem we're going to be looking at is a poem called Bukowski, and it's a poem that was published 3 years after his death in 1997. His death was in 94. The poem was published in 97, and it's called Bukowski, and it's for Fyodor Dostoevsky, the Russian author of Crime and Punishment, and he is one of the very popular Russian literature writers, along with like Leo Tolstoy, people like that. And so I'm going to read the poem right now. It's called Bukowski. Against the wall, the firing squad ready. Then he got a reprieve. Suppose they had shot Bukowski before he wrote all that. I suppose it wouldn't have mattered, not directly. There are billions of people who have never read him and never will. But as a young man, I know that he got me through the factories, past the whores, lifted me high through the night, and put me down in a better place. And even while in the bar drinking with the other derelicts, I was glad they gave Bukowski a reprieve. He gave me one, allowed me to look directly at those rancid faces in my world. Death pointing its finger, I held fast, an immaculate drunk, sharing the stinking dark with my brothers. Wow. Powerful piece of literature. I don't know about you, but the first line, against the wall, the firing squad was ready, sucked me right in, thinking someone was going to die. And the very next line, then he got a reprieve, when Bukowski tells us that he got a reprieve before we even know what happened. Suppose they shot Bukowski, he said, before he wrote all that. And the placement of the question in the poem shows almost a panicked tone before there was even an explanation of why Dostoevsky was going to die. It just seemed Bukowski was glad that he didn't, because of his so much respect he had for him. He also says, but as a young man, I know that he got me through the factories, past the whores, lifted me high through the night, and put me down in a better place. And that's in the middle of the poem, which there's no stanzas in the poem. It's all one big verse. So in the middle of the poem, he says, but as a young man, I know that he got me through the factories, past the whores, lifted me high through the night, put me down in a better place. And I was glad they gave Dostoevsky's reprieve. It gave me one. Showing Bukowski felt he was cut, but that Bukowski was cut some slack, showed some mercy when he was introduced to the Russian literary legend, and then able to turn to him and his works in time of need, just like a junkie turns to his junk or a boozer turns to his booze. It's very clear that Bukowski's using Dostoevsky as a form of self-medication, just as he did with alcohol. We know that Bukowski was known as a drunkard, and it would help him get through the time of the factories, those tough times, conventional, dramatic problems he had with his many, many women. But what I find so intriguing is that Bukowski doesn't think of himself any better than those of the factories and those who worked in a world where they never have the bottom line they deserve. They deserve because their perseverance, how hard they work. And Bukowski sharing the stinking dark with my brothers, when he says that and calls himself an immaculate drunk, he is comparing himself to these factory workers And when Bukowski's a writer, and so is Dostoevsky, and he could be comparing himself to Dostoevsky, but he's comparing himself to the derelicts he drinks within the bar. Sharing the stinking dark with my brothers, calling them brothers, and I just thought that's awesome that he is humble enough to know that he's just a human, and that's a lot of Bukowski's writings are, about lower class and, people in the lower class, not the high society, not someone like Edith Wharton writes about, something more like Henry James, the real thing, he talks about the real thing. So, the next poem we're going to be doing is called The Meek Have Inherited, and it's out of Love is a Dog from Hell, which is another one of my favorite poetry books by Bukowski. But any book that I pick up for Bukowski and I'll say this is one of my favorite books. I'll say that to any book, obviously. And I'm wearing the shirt of him because I've never seen a literary person on a shirt, and it's more like Bukowski is more like a kind of like a musician when it comes to, he's not very refined. And so anyways, we're going to get into this poem, The Meek Have Inherited. It's a real short one because Patricia has another one to share with us. The Meek Have Inherited. Here we go. The Meek Have Inherited. I suffer at this typewriter. Think how I'd feel among the lettuce pickers of Salinas. I think of the men I've known in factories with no way to get out. Choking while living, choking while laughing at Bob Hope or Lucille Ball while 2 or 3 children beat tennis balls against the walls. Some suicides are never recorded. Okay. Another poem that shows his acknowledgement of the lower class. The people with, as he says in line 4 of the stanza, with no way out. He immediately talks about his suffering as his new career. And if I suffer at this typewriter, think how I'd feel among the lettuce pickers of Salinas. And he's giving respect to the people who actually have it hard, like he once did. People who actually have to work hard and don't get to sit at a typewriter and say whatever it is he feels like saying. It was written in 1975. It's the same year Factotum was written, and Factotum is all about the factories and all about all those jobs he did, and then and that's what this poem is about too. So his acknowledgement of the lower classes. He's reminiscing of where he originally came from. And let's see. He also, the choking while living, choking while laughing at Bob Hope or Lucille Ball. He's saying that the workers, he uses these celebrities like he did Dostoevsky, like a drug to escape. It seems to be to them a dead-end world of low-income work, something he can relate to from all his years as a laborer. And he ends the poem with humor, like he does so often, saying some suicides are never recorded. And it's not a depressing comment, but a humorous comment saying that these guys have it rough like he did. And, a lot of those, have you ever seen a husband at a party look at someone as a joke and just go, it's a joke like that. That's how I took it. And his compassion and understanding of the world and his tangible view of him on humanity and all the humanity's clowns is the reason he is so popular, especially with me. And his work has been described as dirty realism. Compared to other poets, Bukowski is one that makes me feel and makes the most sense. An impeccable example of simple black and white, and less is always more. So I'm going to give it over to Patricia right now. She's going to read 2347 Blaine. Thank you for your attention. And there she is.
Thank you, John. I'm Patricia, and I'm going to read for you 2347 Dwayne. There's this blue baby, and she's sucking a blue breast under a green vine that is grown from the ceiling. And further to the right, there is a light brown girl against a dark brown background, and she's leaning out over a chair, pensive, I suppose. My cigarette just went out, and there are never any matches around here. And I get up and I go in the kitchen and light it on a 30-year-old stove. I get back without incident. Now behind me on a pink chair is a large old-fashioned shears. It is 15 minutes past midnight, and the hook is on the door. and over the tall twisted lamp by the bed is a floppy red hat that is used as a lampshade, and a small dog growls at the tall, cold sky outside. There are 2 mattresses on the floor, and I've slept on one of those mattresses many nights. They say they are going to bulldoze this place, which is owned by a Japanese wrestler called Fuji. I don't see how it can be replaced with anything better. She fixed the bathroom faucet and the faucet in the sink. Tonight, she can't roll a cigarette, but she keeps the plumbing bills down. We ate some Colonel Sanders chicken with coleslaw, mashed spuds, gravy, and biscuits. It's 23 minutes past midnight, and they're going to bulldoze this place. I don't mean tomorrow, I mean soon. And the small dog growls at the sky again, and my cigarette is out again. The love on the one mattress near the door, the sex and the arguments and the dreams and the conversation, that bulldozer's going to come up missing there. And even when it knocks down the trees and the crapper and eat holes in the dirt driveway, it's not going to get it all. And when I drive by in 6 months and see the high rises filled with 50 people with good stable incomes, I will still remember the blue baby sucking the blue breast, the leaky faucets, the spider and the termites, the yellow and gray paint, the tablecloth over the front window, and the mattress near the door. 2347 Duane is very much a signature style of poems by Bukowski. It's somber, reflective, and nostalgic. And he writes, and she leans over a chair looking pensive, I suppose. He also shifts back in time to inform that mood. And they're going to bulldoze down this place. I don't mean tomorrow, I mean soon. When I drive by in 6 months and see the high rise, I still will remember. Also, the evening informs the mood. It's 15 past midnight and the hook is on the door. The day is ending. It's a reflective time of the day, and one tends to get deep and long into ruminations. It's also a day's end with the promise of a new tomorrow. One of the themes in the poem has to do with the working class, low class, marginal living, life on the fringe of society. And that's very indicative in the description of the apartment. We have a 30-year-old stove. We have a tall, twisted lamp with a floppy red hat that's used as a lampshade. There are the 2 mattresses on the floor, leaky faucets, spiders, termites, gray and yellow paint, and there's a tablecloth over the front door. The meal is a Colonel Sanders chicken with coleslaw, mashed spuds, gravy, biscuits, typical fast food. He also talks about love in the poem, which is also a typical Bukowski's theme. The love on that one mattress near the door, the sex and the arguments. And there's also loss. They say they're going to bulldoze this place. The love on the mattress is not going to get it all. I don't see how it can be replaced with anything better. And of course he hints at his drunkenness. I get back without without accident. There's also a lack of agency here. You have this famed wrestler who's going to purchase this derelict building, and he's going to turn it into a high-rise for good people with good incomes. And they're disenfranchised and have no control over what happens with this building. 2 points I want to share with you that were discussed in poetry criticism. And one of the critics wrote that writing for Bukowski is getting feelings down. Bukowski's urge to write, prompted by a mix of angst. An image allows him to translate pain into a testimony for his spirit. There's a time bomb in his chest, and if it doesn't go off as a poem, it'll explode in drunkenness, despair, vomiting, and rage. Another critic wrote, and I'll close with these two comments. Bukowski's poetry, for the color, texture, and rhythm of modern life, reveals itself both in what he writes and what he does not write. His attention to detail, his consistent presentation of physical minutiae, and of seemingly inconsequence. This critic also adds that Bukowski's world scored and grew by the impersonal instruments of civilized society, by 20th century knowledge and experience, remains essentially a world in which meditation and analysis has little part. And I'll close by sharing this last comment. Bukowski's sort of poetry projects a kind of structured and emotional imaginative form. The kind of poetry produces ideas not resident in it. It serves as a trigger. Thank you very much. For a copy of the sources that we used today in our presentation, please contact me at pasanders1@pipeline.sbcc.edu. Thank you.